Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again to As I Live and Grieve. We just keep plugging along, don't we? One foot in front of the other. That's what we do. With me today is Naomi Riley, and I think you're going to be fascinated by her story. So let me get right to it and introduce you. Naomi, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Before we get started with my questions, of which there are probably going to be many, because I find you fascinating, would you please just start out by sharing a little bit of your background with our listeners? Who is Naomi Riley?
Yeah, so I'm a mom of 3 amazing and beautiful kids who are now grown adults. When I was a young child, back in my days, I was diagnosed with a disability that really altered the course of my life as growing up. I was blessed with something called JRA. And for those of you that don't know that, it's called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh.
My doctors told me that I had that and I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was in my late teens.
Oh.
So, so I always had this isn't going to happen to me syndrome. I'm not going to allow this, right? Yeah.
Right.
So that's just one little thing about me. But nowadays I work as a consultant and I work as just an advisor to a lot of different businesses. And, I have a good life now and I'm very, very blessed for it. But, there's been some times that have not been so great in my life.
I'll bet. And we all encounter those times in our lives. We normally talk in the podcast about grief as it relates to losing someone we love through death. But we've also talked numerous times about how we all experience grief in our normal day-to-day lives. It could be loss of a job, loss of a relationship, or whatever. For maybe you didn't get the raise you expected and you were going to buy that RV and tour the United States with it. But for you, Naomi, you were just going along great as a teen. And then all of a sudden, like a light switch flipped, you found out that you weren't going to have the life you'd been dreaming of.
Right.
So what was that like for you?
It was really, really traumatic, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And I wouldn't allow my mindset to go there. I had the mindset of this isn't going to happen to me and I'm not going to allow it. And so I did everything that I could to make sure that I wasn't going to be in that state. Back in my day, there were not a lot of regimens and medications that could help me.
Really?
And so I would, go through rigorous amounts of therapies and trial and error type of situations to see what could help me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I am very, very lucky to this day that I'm able to still walk around and do the things that I need to do to keep moving forward. I still have the illness, but I am not anywhere near where I would, where the doctors thought I would be at this point in my life. So I'm very, very fortunate for that. So, but yeah, fast forward to 2017.
Yeah.
I'd love to share that story with you.
Please do.
So we all have these situations in our lives that take wild turns, as you mentioned, from a loss of a job or not getting what we had hoped for.
Mm-hmm.
And we can grieve that. My life took a drastic turn in 2017. I was not diagnosed, but I was hit by a distracted driver.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going through my, through daily life. I had dropped, I think, an animal off. We take some of our animals to doggy daycare. And so we had dropped an animal off at doggy daycare. And thankfully I was the only one in the vehicle, but I was struck by a distracted driver. And I was so upset because of the fact that, I remember looking up at a hospital room ceiling going, oh my gosh, why am I here? How did it get to this? That frustration and anger that you have just in one moment's time when you're going along life and it just smacks you in the face saying, nope, we got a different course for you.
Right.
And we can't foresee those things. We never can foresee those things, those catastrophic things that could happen to us. And so I had a brain injury and I had several other injuries. And not knowing where my life was going to go was probably the hardest thing that I had to accept at that time.
Sure.
I would spend 9 months in and out of a rehab hospital trying to get my life back in order. I think the thing that I grieved about most was just wanting my life back that I had prior to that accident. And I will never be the same. I was diagnosed with something called trigeminal and occipital neuralgia. And it's really one of the worst conditions that are known to man. And it's, it's something that I had to accept late after my accident. And that was another thing is that, yeah, they diagnosed me with brain injury. They diagnosed me with other injuries, but they didn't see what the artery and the nerve were doing. And so I would be back and forth in the hospital all the time saying, something isn't right with me. I need you to figure this out, and the hard thing about that was there was so much gray in between, right? So, while, friends and family didn't understand what was wrong with me, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me, that whole sense of how am I going to get through this and how am I going to navigate my way to my next normal was really, really difficult. Sure. And so I lost the person that I used to be. And I think that for us, anyone that grieves can go through just such a difficult time of change. And, the loss of a friend or family member can be so, so traumatic on us. Right. Because they're not there anymore.
Right.
I found so much strength in God, in His Word. And I don't think that I had found enough strength in that prior to my accident, because at the point where I was in the hospital, I kept asking God, why am I here? Why did you leave me here?
Right.
I would rather not be here than I would rather be, at home with you, Lord, than to be here on this earth. And that probably doesn't sound the best, or selfish. I have 3 kids and family that love me. But when you are struck and you have no idea what's going on and you know that you have to climb back up,
you're right.
It makes it really, really difficult. And so when we lose a family member, we lose someone, that loss or even loss of an arm or a leg or something, that loss is so, so significant in our life.
Right.
And just having to reprogram ourselves to say, okay, I have to accept the things that I can't change. And now I have to move forward with that.
Right.
And the thing that really helped me is I had a great team around me, because there was times I didn't want to move forward. And I think that we can all find ourselves in a dark, deep depression at times. But as long as we're taking baby steps to move forward every day, to say, what can I do today to make a difference? Or how can I make my life better each day? It's going to move us in a good direction. And our mindset is going to start changing to say, you know what? I think I can do this. I think I can move forward.
Yeah.
Even though this portion of me is not here anymore, or even though you are not here anymore, I'm going to do this because I know you would want me to do this, or I know my inner strength wants me to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that positive mindset, I think, it's so difficult to get to the point where you can have a positive mindset. And then it's equally difficult, I think, to sustain that mindset. And I know I had reached a point in my life at one time that I just felt, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by negativity at work, my coworkers and everything, my family, some of my family members and friends, they were just all so negative. So I made a concerted effort to remove negativity from my life wherever I could. And where I couldn't actually remove it, I was going to counter it. If somebody made a negative statement, I was going to try to turn it into a positive. And I'm sure I probably really stressed some of my friends out. But after a while, I found it really made a difference in my life. And then after my husband died, I found I was doing the same thing again. I needed that positive mindset back because I found that I had to redefine myself. My life wasn't the same because for 8 months, I had spent every waking hour taking care of my husband, doing things for him, taking him to the labs, to doctor's appointments, visiting him at the hospital when he was admitted, things like that. I had lost myself in that midst.
Yes.
And it's that positive mindset. So it really helps. And we talk about self-care a lot. And one of the pieces of self-care we find is the people you hang out with. Did you find that makes a difference?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I found, that was so important. So after my injury, I had to really focus in on just moving my daily tasks forward.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine yourself that you can't comprehend anything. Okay. So sentence structures, the way that you interpret a story. I had to learn how to walk and walk without tremors and just follow a straight line. So yes, everything played a part in that. So I had to eliminate all of my distractions, and that included any friends that were any negative portion in my life. And that was really difficult because I had family members that were caring for me, but they were so negative. And so when we surround ourselves with the negativity, we are only just destroying ourselves. It's so important. So one of the things that I do now, and mind you, okay, so I was able to get myself out of all of the rehab and really my neural pathways were all redeveloped well. And from that, I developed savant syndrome. And so I started something for students called the Text Pledge Project. It takes students through 10 of our country's biggest dilemmas, and it shows them, here's what our nation is dealing with, and here's the stat, and here's how we can kind of stand up against all of it, right? But one of the things that we saw is that our nation is really struggling with is helping the students understand we're all interconnected. And if we're not looking at our mental health and every single aspect that's going on with our mental health, then we're going to still struggle for a long time. And so one of the things, I hired a team and researchers and all of this. And so we were able to put the Text Pledge Project together, and we found a need in the market. And what it was that students didn't have access to all the crisis helplines in one spot. And I talk about now when I go around the country, I talk about the brain's abilities when it's in crisis mode. Its abilities are to freeze, to flight, to fight, or to fawn. And so we never know how the brain is going to act when it's in crisis. And so the way that we've handled things as a nation, we should have done this, or this should have been done, or this should have been done. It's really important that we share with students the resources that they need when in a crisis situation. And so we found a need within the market for the Text Pledge Project. And we're just getting it out there. We developed 45 curriculums for K through college age now. And we're just launching it, it's so rewarding now because I know now why God left me here on this earth. And then I was able to develop some, I think I'm at 42 or something ebooks. And I'm going to share a bunch with your listeners on overcoming grief. And, I've been able to minister to a lot of other people just by, sharing my story on how much it's so important to keep that positive mindset as much as you can. Now, I know there's never, ever going to be that person that, I think I talked about one time how you cannot go around being positive all the time.
Right.
We just can't do it as humans. It's too hard. And so we have to learn how we get through these hills and valleys and help each other out. Mm-hmm. It's so important. And so I stress the fact, when I was in the hospital, I had a great team around me. They were rooting me on, saying, you can do this, you can remember this. And I would get stuck. I would be stuck and I would move forward the next day. But I had to eliminate all of my distractions and just really focus in on the things I needed to focus in on to make my shift and my day move better in a more positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a good thing now with Text Pledge. We've had some individuals that have lost loved ones. Mm-hmm. And it's so important that we help everyone understand that it's okay to not be okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay to not be okay alone.
Right.
We want you to make sure that you're constantly reaching out for help and reaching out for guidance because probably we've all been through it.
Yeah.
Somebody's been through something.
Absolutely. I have to interrupt with what I call a toddler question. And it's a question that to me sounds so simplistic, but I just have to know. You talked about while you were going through rehab and everything, you had to be retrained and you struggled with different things. One of the greatest fears for me is dementia. That's one of my greatest fears. So I have to ask you, as you were going through your rehab, did you know that you were unable to comprehend something? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did. And it was one of the hardest points in my life because it would almost be like a blank stare.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest points. I think that my brain was just so exhausted. It got very exhausted from trying.
Yeah. So you knew you were supposed to know this.
Oh, yeah.
But you just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And so I would be looking at flashcards. I would be looking at triangles, colors.
Yeah.
And having to put, things together.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, there was times where I couldn't move forward. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. As we get older, our brain does too.
Yeah.
And sometimes our brains are super smart until the day we die, and other times they're not. I am a firm believer, though, in any supplement that you can get now to help your brain survive and your body. Because I've had RA for so long, I doused myself with supplements all the time.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to when I was a teen, but now I see the importance of it.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dementia is it's scary. It's a scary thing, but I know that there's
verifies me because I have my IQ's it's up there a ways. I qualify for Mensa. And it just terrifies me that at some point I might not be able to comprehend something or not be able to express something. But my worst fear is knowing that I can't do it. That's my worst fear. If my mind has gone to the extent that, it doesn't matter, I don't know what I don't know. That's one thing. But,
there's a lot of brain games you can get out.
I play a lot. I do. Okay. A lot of fun and everything every day. Let's go back to this project of yours, because in your grief, moving through it and everything, you have now created a legacy. And I know of a number of people that have had someone die or had gone through some traumatic experience in their lifetime. And as they got through it themselves and realized all of a sudden they knew themselves better, they knew who they were, and a lot of them even found their purpose in life. Yeah. I found this podcast to help others, and you found it with your project. How did you come across this concept?
So for me, I kept praying every day. Give me reasons. Why am I still here? Early on, I didn't know where I was going to be, right? And I was so angry at our own world, at what we've allowed to happen. And not only with the distracted driving, but there's so many other issues that are going on in society. And I remember laying in a hospital bed in the rehab hospital going, okay, so distracted driving is not the only problem. I was seeing gun violence and hate crimes and things like that. And so I kept praying to God, what could one do to help our kids navigate through all of this? Our society is allowed to let all these things happen. And we continue to allow a lot of things to happen. Right. But let's figure out some ways that we can just help them navigate through, what has happened and teach them. So now, our project is kindergartners and first graders can understand what distracted driving is. And I think that for them, the youngest minds are to me sometimes are the most intelligent, because they are the most innocent and vulnerable, and they are so impressionable.
And as you say that, I can just picture in my mind some child in the back seat, in their booster seat or something, telling their mom or dad, you're distracted. You're a distracted driver. I can see it. I can hear it. And I applaud it. I love that. I love that. I really do.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's empower the little ones.
Why not?
Absolutely.
they're the next generation. Let's teach them that they can have this power to say, hey, I know what you're doing. We're not, I need to be safe in my own car.
Yeah. Well, I remember my grandson saying at some point that they didn't want to do a particular activity with someone because that someone drank too much before they did an activity.
Yeah.
And I thought, they know, they're so wise.
They are.
They really are. So I think that's exciting. I really do.
Yes, I'll send you all of the information your readers can learn about who we are and what we do. Our recesses are free. We just came out with a book for adults too that really helps them understand, hey, you know what? Even though these kids need this, we kind of need some reminders too. So our book just released for that. So
nice.
We're excited.
And you also mentioned that, and this is something that I'm aware of too, that for all the crisis lines and everything there are for suicide or gun violence or missing children or whatever, there are different phone numbers. But you said something about putting that all in one place. Is there one number?
It did.
Does your project offer that?
It does. So you can download the Text Pledge app, and you're going to see the nation's first smart crisis card. So it has everything on there from 911, 988, missing child hotline, human trafficking, poison control, all those things that are so important that we need in our society. So something that the carriers have missed. I was just like, you know what? My mom used to have an emergency phone list when I was babysat. So why can't we have one online?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, why haven't we heard about this before?
Well, we're just getting our name out there as quickly as we can and doing the best that we can. I'm very, very particular with the partnerships and the advertisers that come in. The website was created as a safe space for students. And so I don't want them to get distracted with all the ads and everything like that. So we're ad free, mainly ad free for the website. However, there is one page for advertisers and sponsors. So.
Excellent. Well, I want my listeners to know more about this and other projects you might be working on. So what I'm going to do right now, Naomi, is I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to you and let you just talk to the listeners directly. Now, we do have an international base of listeners. So, it will be applicable, I'm sure, to many people. But I'm going to let you speak freely and just tell them more about your project or any other exciting news you might want to share. And I think you even mentioned about some stuff for the listeners, so maybe you'll mention that too. Floor is yours.
All right. So again, thank you so much for listening to my story. You can go to Text Pledge. It's TXTPLEDGE.US. Now, our organization really is for the United States. However, our educational resources under teacher resources are all free to any individual that's interested in knowing more about the project. There's a lot of resources on all of the pledges that we stand against. So I really encourage that. My vision when I created this organization was to keep it simple, but to be very impactful for students. So it is our goal to be in every nation as quickly as we can be. So that is the one project that we're working on. You can download, if you are in the United States, you can download the Text Pledge app, which is on Google Play or on the App Store. A couple other projects that I work on. I do a digital resale rights company where business owners can leverage up their online presence and create ebooks, educational materials for their own business. That is Virtue Ventures Resale Rights. You can learn more about all of the projects that I work on at NaomiLRiley.com. Thank you so, so much. Yes, I'm going to supply you guys with a whole bunch of books and resources. It's just been a pleasure.
So all they have to do is go to the website and all of the resources are free.
Yes.
Wow. That is so unusual. I know I'm going to check them out as well, and I'm going to pass the information along to as many people as I can think of.
Oh, I love that. So good. Our books, we do have big books, and they will be on, I think they're on Amazon as of next week. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, that is very new. Now, how long has the project been in the works? When did you start it?
Oh, well, goodness. Well, it was 7.5 years of research and development. Wow. So really the last 3 to 4 years, we pushed, really hard in our research. And over the last year, it's been the biggest push. So,
okay. And how did you select the top 10 issues?
we did it just by a ton of research. Trust me, there are a lot of other issues that we realized when we did our adult books. I'm like, hey, we need to include this. We need to include this. We've got so many things going on. We can help, really help deter some of these. And we're constantly like Apple, because we're constantly making updates.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, let's make an update per quarter, and we might be, adding to as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So how did we distracted driving? It was then because my uncle was hit, my accident. This is why I founded it. And then I just went down the list. I saw all the things that were going on, and I'm like, come on, we need to make some changes.
No, very good. Very good. It just sounds like there's so much information, and I know some teachers maybe that should be connected to your site as well. So yeah, I'll definitely put the word out, and our listeners should too. And for our listeners, I always kind of try to wrap up and say, this is why we talked about this. Well, initially, I wanted you to hear Naomi's story, and from her story and from her voice and her excitement, I wanted you to kind of pick that up. She didn't just stay in one position. She made a decision that she didn't want to stay at that point in her life, and she wanted to make a better life for herself, and she did it. It was difficult. You heard her. Months and months and months of rehab after her accident. It's not easy. Just as every one of you who are grieving, it's not easy. But at some point, you need to make that decision like I did. And I actually said to myself, I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life, however long that might be. I didn't want to stay in that position. And you start moving forward very slowly at first. Some days I was lucky if I got up in the morning, got out of my pajamas, showered, and put on clean clothes. Some days I felt myself so blessed if I managed to make a meal for myself. Yeah. It's not easy, but you need to do it. If for nothing else, think of maybe the person you lost. They wouldn't want you to be devastated for the rest of your life.
No.
So my point in you hearing this story is I wanted you to kind of capture some of that excitement and positivity from Naomi. Think about where you are. Think about what you need to do for yourself. And then start looking forward and start moving in that direction. Think about it, then just do it. I love you all. You can't know for 1 second how much support, even though I don't know so many of you, thousands and thousands of you, I don't know you. I know that you're there listening to me. And for that, I'm so grateful, because by listening to me, you're supporting me in my own grief. I moved forward. I continue to move forward. Get some positivity in your life. Try to get rid of that negativity. It'll help you move forward more quickly. It will help you become a better you, a happier you. So take care of yourself, and we'll catch you again next week as we all continue to live and grieve. Thanks so much, Naomi.
Thanks for having me on. This has been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Till next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asiliveandgrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.